Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Here's a story I never thought I'd tell, but I can't pretend it didn't happen. The cops found my wedding ring in a storm drain. It was still spinning when they got there, like someone had just thrown it with everything they had. They asked if it belonged to me. I said no, but it was mine. They were responding to a noise complaint, shouting, glass breaking. Someone thought it was domestic violence. It wasn't. It was just me in our empty driveway, yelling at the night. I had thrown my phone at the wall. It didn't break, unfortunately. Then I threw the lamp from our porch. That did. Then I ripped the ring off my finger and launched it toward the street like it was radioactive. It wasn't just rage, it was betrayal, shame, disbelief, and somehow stupidity boiled into one. Because the thing I kept hearing wasn't even the lie. It was her voice, soft, calm, controlled, like I was the one being unreasonable. It didn't mean anything, Ezra. One night shouldn't destroy our family. One night won, like I was just being dramatic for not clapping and forgiving her immediately. She said it while holding my hand. Can you believe that? My wife of 10 years, still with his smell on her skin, trying to comfort me while calling it meaningless. I hadn't even processed the text yet, the one I wasn't supposed to see. She left her phone in the bathroom while getting dressed. I never check it, never have. But something buzzed, and for once I looked. It was a photo, a blurry one, but unmistakable. Her, a hotel mirror, bare shoulders, a man behind her, his hand way too familiar with her body. The caption? Last night felt like college. I miss that. You're bad for me? I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just walked into the bedroom and asked, was it worth it? She didn't even ask what I was talking about. She just sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor, like she had already rehearsed this moment, and then she said it, that thing. It was just a meaningless mistake. One night shouldn't destroy our family, and maybe it shouldn't have. But then again, if one night can make you forget a decade, how much did the decade really mean? I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the living room, wrapped in the same hoodie I've had since college, staring at the door like it might open and erase everything. My mind kept circling back to that text. Last night felt like college. What did that even mean to her? Wild, reckless, free from responsibility? Because to me, it meant a time before we built this life, this home, this promise. And if she wanted to relive those days, she should have said so, not reheated them with someone who wasn't me. Kendra stayed in the guest room. She didn't cry. That's what got me the most. I wanted her to be a mess, to panic, to beg, but she just looked tired, like I was the one making everything harder than it needed to be. I even heard her humming at one point. Humming. While I sat there feeling like I'd been gutted. The next morning, I opened the drawer where we kept our receipts and found one I hadn't seen before, tucked behind an old electric bill. Riverside Inn, room 207, 2 nights. No business name, just a lazy little note scribbled at the bottom. Don't forget wine. Her handwriting. I had to know more. I drove to that hotel like a zombie. I wasn't planning anything. I just needed to see it. The place where my wife became a stranger. The clerk looked nervous when I asked if Kendra R. had stayed there recently. He asked if I was her husband. I said yes. Then he said, she left her necklace in the room. Been trying to reach her? He handed it to me. That little silver charm I gave her on our 5th anniversary. She wore it almost every day, until the last 2 weeks. I hadn't even noticed it was gone. I stood there, staring at it in my palm, and all I could think was, she took it off for him. That night, when I confronted her again, she didn't yell. She just whispered, you're blowing this up like I had a full affair. Ezra, it was 2 nights. We were drinking. I didn't plan it. Then she touched my cheek and said it again, like a broken record. It didn't mean anything. One night shouldn't destroy our family. And I said something I didn't expect to say. Then why does it feel like you killed something? She didn't flinch when I said she'd killed something. In fact, she looked almost offended, like I'd exaggerated the crime. Her lips parted slightly, and for a second I thought she might break, might say something real, raw, regretful. But instead, she crossed her arms and muttered, Ezra, you act like I left you. I came home. I didn't run off with him, as if the mere fact that she came back should have reset everything. As if crossing our threshold and making coffee the next morning erased what she did in that hotel bed. I just stared at her, and then at the necklace lying between us on the table, and asked, "Did you wear this when he touched you?" That broke her silence. She grabbed the charm and snapped, "Don't reduce me to a prop in your fantasy of betrayal." My fantasy? I couldn't even respond. My whole body felt cold. That was the moment I realized she wasn't sorry. Not really. She was just trying to contain the damage, preserve the structure, keep the house from collapsing, even if the foundation had already crumbled. For days she walked around like everything was normal. She did laundry, cooked dinner, even asked if I wanted to finish that documentary we'd started the week before. I watched her, not like a husband, but like an outsider. Like I was studying a person I used to know, trying to figure out when the shift happened, when the woman who used to giggle in the cereal aisle became someone who could lie so easily. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time she touched me, I recoiled. She noticed. I know she did. But she never pushed. She just said things like, "I get it," and "You have every right to be hurt," while looking at me like I was the one spiraling too far. One night, I finally asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Did you love it?" Her back was to me, folding towels. She paused, not long, just enough. Then she said, "It wasn't about that. It was about me. I felt invisible, Ezra. I just wanted to feel something again. It was a detour. That's all, a detour. Like she had taken a scenic route through someone else's body and figured she could circle back to me once she got it out of her system." I nodded, then walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and cried into a towel like a child, trying not to let her hear me break. For the next few days, we existed like cautious roommates. She'd say good morning in a voice too soft to be real. I'd respond with a nod that felt like a lie. I couldn't look her in the eye without picturing what she looked like in that hotel mirror. Relaxed, exposed, not for me. I became obsessed with timelines, trying to pinpoint the exact hour she decided I wasn't enough. She told me it was spontaneous, but I started dissecting every detail, like some pathetic detective working a case no one would prosecute. When did she start pulling away? Was it that night she said she was tired and went to bed early? Was it when she forgot our anniversary dinner reservation and blamed a work deadline? Or was it the weekend I had food poisoning and she spent the night at her co-working studio because she couldn't focus around vomit? All those little cracks I ignored. Now they felt like gaping holes she'd been crawling through all along. I started watching her phone. I didn't want to. I swear I didn't. But once trust is gone, everything looks like a clue. She never let it out of her sight now. Slept with it under her pillow. Took it to the bathroom. Once, while she was showering, I heard it buzz from under a towel. My heart dropped into my stomach. I didn't even plan to touch it. My hand just moved. It was unlocked, for once. I opened her texts, and there it was. A message from E, no name, just E, one line. "I can still taste you." I nearly threw up. I didn't scream. I didn't march to the bathroom and yank the curtain open like in the movies. I just walked to the kitchen and sat down, phone in hand, staring at the words over and over. My wife, my home, my life. Reduced to this. And when she came out, damp hair clinging to her face, humming that same stupid song she always did when she showered, I couldn't hold it back. I asked, "Is that what you want forever? Someone who texts you like a line from a trashy novel?" She froze. Her eyes landed on the phone in my hand. And all she said was, "You weren't supposed to see that." Not, "It's over." Not, "It meant nothing." Not, "I'm sorry." Just, "You weren't supposed to see it," as if my pain was a technicality. I wish I could tell you I stood up and took control of everything right then. I wish I had thrown her phone across the room, packed my bags, and stormed out like the hero of a breakup movie. But I didn't. I sat there, stunned, phone still warm in my hand, and asked one of the most pathetic questions I've ever uttered in my life. "Are you still seeing him?" She blinked slowly, like I was being unreasonable. "No," she said, and then added, almost lazily, "Not since that last time. You know, when I came home early from the workshop, that word, since, it split me open." She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She just gave me a timestamp, like we were syncing calendars. That night, I slept on the couch. I didn't even try the guest room. It felt wrong to sleep in the same bed that had once felt safe. I lay awake until 3, staring at the ceiling, trying to replay every version of our marriage. The good years, the fights, the vacations, the nights we laughed until we cried, all of it blurred with this one truth I couldn't erase. She had let someone else touch the life we built together, and then looked me in the eye and told me it wasn't supposed to matter. The next day, she told her sister everything. I found out when her sister called me crying. "I didn't know, Ezra," she said over and over. "I swear I didn't know." I hadn't even processed that Kendra was telling people. Was this some kind of campaign? Damage control? But the worst part came that evening when I stepped outside to get the mail and heard our neighbor Greg ask, "You doing okay, man?" It was in his tone, not casual, not friendly. Pity. And that's when I realized she wasn't just telling people, she was rewriting the story. The version that started circulating was that our marriage had been rocky for a long time, that I'd emotionally withdrawn, that I wasn't supportive of her career, that I had stopped being present. I felt like I was drowning in someone else's narrative. She had made me the villain in the story of her own betrayal. And the worst part? People believed her, because she smiled through it, because she didn't cry, because she wore guilt like a costume, just long enough to pass for someone who tried. Somewhere along the way, I stopped trusting my memories. That's what betrayal does. It makes you replay everything you thought was real until it starts to feel staged. Like all the warmth you remember was just a setup, a backdrop for a story that was always going to end this way. I started questioning if she ever really loved me, not just lately, but at all. Maybe I was just convenient, reliable, a safe investment with low emotional risk. I couldn't stop imagining all the times she smiled at me while texting him, all the times I rubbed her back when she was tired from work, not knowing she was tired because she'd spent hours in someone else's arms. One night, I stood in our bedroom doorway and watched her sleep, peacefully, like nothing had shifted in our world, like she hadn't detonated a bomb and walked away from the smoke. I wondered if she dreamt about him, if she ever dreamed about me anymore, and then I wondered why I still cared. Why was I still in this house, breathing the same air, eating meals she cooked like everything hadn't changed? I kept telling myself I needed closure, something to explain why she had done it, but the truth was uglier. I was afraid of being alone, afraid that if I left, I'd be left with nothing but silence and the echo of all the things I should have seen sooner. A few days later, I got a message on Facebook from someone I didn't recognize. No profile picture, just the name T. The message was short. "She's not done with him." "I thought you should know." I stared at it for a full minute before my hands moved. I replied, "Who are you?" But there was no answer. I clicked on the profile. Already deleted. I wanted to believe it was fake, someone messing with me, but it didn't feel like a troll. It felt like someone who had been close enough to see the truth. That night, I asked her again. I looked her straight in the eyes and asked, "Is it over?" She didn't blink. She just looked tired again, like I was exhausting her with my pain. And then she said, "Do you want it to be over, Ezra? Or do you just want someone to punish?" That question broke me, because deep down, I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want justice. I just wanted to feel like I mattered again. Like I wasn't some easily replaced part of her life. And in that moment, I realized I'd never get that from her again. Maybe never had in the first place. It arrived in the mailbox with no return address, just a plain white envelope, slightly crumpled, like it had been handled too many times before it reached me. I almost tossed it aside with the junk mail, but something about it felt intentional. I opened it slowly, already bracing for another cut I hadn't asked for. Inside was a single printed photo, grainy, blurred by distance, but clear enough to recognize the curve of her smile and the way her hand rested on the back of a man I'd never seen before. They were walking out of a wine bar, laughing, her heels dangling from one hand, like she was floating through a night she never expected to be caught in. The timestamp in the corner confirmed what I feared. This was last Friday, the same night she told me she was visiting her sister. The same night I'd spent binge-watching old shows and telling myself we were slowly healing. I stood there, gripping the photo, my fingers curling around the edges so tight it bent. I didn't cry. Not that time. I just sat down at the kitchen table, photo beside me, and stared at nothing. I don't know how long I was there when Kendra came home. She walked in humming again, always humming, like some twisted soundtrack to the unraveling of my sanity. When she saw the photo, she stopped mid-step. Her face didn't crumple. No panic, just a long exhale, like she'd been waiting for this moment and was relieved it was finally over. She didn't deny it, didn't ask where it came from. She just said, "I didn't sleep with him." And for some reason, that made me laugh, out loud. A sharp, bitter sound that didn't even feel like it came from my body. "You really think that's what matters now?" I asked. "That this time you didn't take it all the way?" She sat across from me and reached for my hand. I pulled back like she'd touched fire. "Ezra," she whispered, "I needed to know if the problem was you or me." That sentence broke something in me that I hadn't realized was still intact. She wasn't sorry. She was experimenting. Like I was an outdated version of something she used to want and wasn't sure if she should upgrade or just reboot. All I could think was, I've been living in the wreckage of her indecision. And she's still calling it love. I didn't scream. I didn't pack a suitcase in a rage. I didn't post a dramatic goodbye on social media or smash anything in the garage. I just stood up from that table, looked at her one last time, and said, "You'll never understand what you threw away." Then I walked out the front door with nothing but my wallet and my car keys. It wasn't a victory. It wasn't revenge. It was oxygen. The first real breath I'd taken in months. For a while, I drifted. I rented a cheap apartment above a bookstore and ate too much takeout. I stared at ceilings, replayed conversations, doubted myself all over again. But slowly, something strange started happening. The silence stopped hurting. The stillness became comforting. I got into habits I used to love but had forgotten. Sketching, morning runs, Sunday flea markets. I met people who didn't know me as Kendra's husband. I became someone new. She tried to reach out, of course. A long email. A voicemail on my birthday. Even a letter, written in the handwriting I used to adore. But I never replied. Not because I hated her, not even because I wanted her to suffer, but because healing doesn't happen in reverse. You don't get to rebuild trust in the ruins of manipulation. One afternoon, I walked past a mirror in a little art gallery and saw myself laughing. It hit me like a bolt. I hadn't seen that version of myself in years, not the version weighed down by doubt, apology, and emotional hunger. I had finally stopped waiting for her to see my worth and decided to recognize it myself. Now, I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm rebuilding on my own terms. And I've learned something important. One night can destroy a family. But sometimes that destruction is the beginning of real life. Thanks for being here. If you made it this far, I'd love to hear from you. What's a turning point in history, personal or global, that looked like an ending but turned out to be a new beginning? Drop it in the comments. And don't forget, you're on Reddit Confessions, where every story has a reason, and sometimes a quiet kind of victory.